What's going on, y'all? Back for another video on the channel, and this is our December 2021 wrap up. So this will be the first video that Ian's had my TBR at the start of the month and my wrap up at the end of the month, and then we can compare. So real quick, to start the month, I had 10 books on my TBR. Unfortunately, I did not get through it. I read 6 of the 10. I read my first 6. I did not get to the last 4. I kind of went through a reading slump this month. It was like a mini one. It wasn't like it was a prolonged one. So I think from the 19th to now, I didn't really read much. I didn't read a complete book. I kind of read pages here, 10 pages there of different books, and but that's how it goes. It was one of those, I was like, with the holidays and everything, I just couldn't get in the flow reading anything, and I couldn't sit down long enough to really just chunk anything out. So that's how it goes. I didn't account for that. I should have in hindsight, but everything's 2020 hindsight. So like I said, 6 books this month, which I'm pretty pleased with. And like I said, it'll be my last few of the year. So I'll go ahead and do my ranking of the top of the 6 books that I read. And I'm going to go ascending order. So start with number 6. So what we got coming at number 6, and honestly, this is probably the first book that I can say I just didn't like in quite some time. Actually, I had 2 this month I just didn't really care for. But number 6 is going to be Make Your Bed by Admiral William McRaven. I read this digitally, and it really didn't impress me. I feel like a lot of the lessons are things that you hear time and time again. It's from a former Navy SEAL, and none of it was very inspiring. The speech that he gave that kind of inspired the book was honestly very good, and I think my expectations were set at that level, and the book did not live up to it. It reads like every other military book that I've ever read, or every other speech about the military that I've ever heard, and it didn't do it for me. If you've been into any personal development, these are all things you've heard before, and they don't hit any different. They same SSDD. It's just one of them things. So that was honestly one of the first few books in a while that I was just So number 5, is going to be another book that I just was not crazy about. And like I said, I've heard really good things about this book and this series, so I don't really know what's up with that. And that is another book I read digitally, and that was All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is book 1 in the Murderbot Diaries. I've been trying to get big into sci-fi and stuff, and I've read some great sci-fi. And from what I've heard, this is another one that people love. It's just one of those things that people are real into. I just personally found it boring. I didn't think it was very exciting. Never in the book did I become captivated with anything going on about the plot or who these people were, or what was going on, who is this mysterious group, or it never hooked me like I thought it should. And maybe that was an expectation thing on my part, but I didn't think anything exciting happened. I will say, because of the end point, I'm gonna try to read the second one. If the second one doesn't get me, I'm cutting it off. I'm done. I'm not gonna keep reading. I believe there's 6 books in the series. I'm not gonna read beyond the second one if it hasn't righted the wrongs. I'm gonna assume that book 1 was just laying the foundations, and that Martha Wells is gonna kind of ramp that up and escalate it as we go. But for now, I just did not like the first one at all. Now, book 4 is an author, and like I said, I genuinely like this one. I just read the 4 books there. I read 4 very good books, and this is Stephen King. It's Misery. Like I said, this book was exciting. I was really impressed with this book. I didn't know what the story was before I really bought it. I just know that people talked about it as being one of his better works, especially when he was in that first prime that he went through. And so it's the story of Annie Wilkes, and the Paul Sheldon, the author of the Misery series. And I feel like a lot of people knew about this like story, but I honestly had no idea. So Paul Sheldon wrecks, or is in a car wreck. Annie Wilkes finds him and takes him captive and kind of is going to force him to write the next book in the Misery series to be all for her. And it's wild to me because it's very well done, because it's all written from the perspective of Paul Sheldon. Not first person, but from like just over his shoulder. And it all takes place in this one house. Like everything that happens is in there and it's pertaining to that, but it's still so packed with just intense and exciting moments and kind of that level of uncovering like the story of what's going on and who Annie Wilkes is and Paul Sheldon, his past and his history of like his life before the wreck and everything. And it was just very exciting. I hear this critique a lot about Stephen King, that he can't write an ending, but I would not believe that having read this book. I thought it wrapped up fine and it made sense and it felt good as a finish. So like I said, this book is definitely good. I'm excited to dive more into some of Stephen King's other big works. So I don't know what we'll get into next, but like I said, I'm excited excited to see where it goes. Number 3 this month is another digital read, and that is the third book and the final book in the Dr. Harper series, and that is I'm a Therapist and My Patient is a Vegan Terrorist, which, like I said, the title should be enough for people to be like, what? Yeah, the whole series is a thrill ride. They're very short, all 3 of them, and this was, like I said, the third book in the series, and it didn't slow down at all. It just kept the pacing that the first 2 kept, and it's just so exciting. Tells the story of Dr. Harper as they go on an island because there had been a threat to this like fire festival type thing. I can't remember the name of the actual festival, but all these influencers and stuff are there, and it goes through like 6 case files that she goes through he goes through while he's on the island. And I'm telling you, it's crazy. It really is. I'm not going to say anything because I'm actually going to do a video on the Dr. Harper series as a whole, like the trilogy. I'm ignoring the prequel that I believe is out. But let me tell you, it bang, bang, bang. It does not stop. And like I said, this definitely one I think that people can read in a single setting because it's a very short book. And like I said, I think I've read the entire series over, like I read one book a night in just like a couple hours of sitting down and like the intent of reading this book, because they're like 150 to 200 pages, like nothing big, and they read fast because it's a lot of dialogue and like thoughts and stuff from Dr. Harper. So like I said, that was excellent book, and I think everyone should at least give them a shot to see if it's for them. Also, great representation, which I was impressed with. All right, number 2 is a book that my 2 and 1, I've both done reviews on this month. And like I said, there's not too much more I need to say on them. So number 2, Joe Hill's Nosferatu. Book's excellent. I'm very impressed with Joe Hill and his writing, and I can't wait to read more of what he's got going on. So Nosferatu is the story of Charlie Manx and him taking children to Christmas Land, which is, in my mind, is now something that I think about a lot, which is really cool. And just that story and the story of the one that got away, Victoria McQueen. And they just gotta duke it out because of a series of events that transpires. If you want to know more on that, go check my video out on it, because like I said, I go a lot more into detail there, and it's quite good. It's quite good. The book, I loved it. And for my book of the month of December 2021, the best book that I read this month was A Season of Storms by Andrzej Sapkowski. Now, this book, I was very confused. I still kind of am about the Witcher series as a whole, but this book kind of put me back on The Witcher right before the second season of the show came out. And this is the story of Geralt, and it kind of fits in between. So it was the last book to come out. It came out in like 2013, but it is before the first Witcher book, like the first mainline Witcher book. So from my understanding, you can read The Last Wish first, then you read like Sword of Destiny, Season of Storms, and then you jump into, I believe it's Blood of Elves. Yeah, Blood of Elves, which is the first mainline Witcher book. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, because I still don't fully understand it. And I should now, because this is the second time I've talked about it, but I'll eventually get there. And like I said, so those are my 6 books I read this month. What did you read this month? Let me know down below. Have you read any of these books? What'd you think of them? If you want to know more on Season of Storms and Nosferatu, check those videos out. And hopefully some of these other books you'll see videos coming out with soon. So like I said, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, stay reading, y'all.